They didn't recognize me when I walked in. Not the man checking coats near the entrance who glanced past me like I might have wandered in by mistake. Not the woman with the clipboard who asked if I was someone's guest. And definitely not the alumni clustered near the photo display laughing too loudly at stories they've told 100 times already. It had been 25 years since the last time I saw these halls. Hawk V and Stratford all polished marble-arched ceilings and pride layered in expensive renovations. But underneath the glow of chandeliers and refurbished prestige, it was still the same building where I had once been erased. I moved slowly past the welcome sign, Stratford class of '98 honoring the past leading the future, and the irony almost made me laugh. No one said my name. No one whispered, "Is that Iris Calder?" But the stairs came eventually, the kind that start slow, then ripple. Not from memory, but from discomfort. A ripple of recognition without clarity. That's when it began. The murmurs, the sideways glances, like static behind glass. Isn't that... Wait, wasn't she... Oh God, you don't think she actually came back? They wouldn't say it out loud, not here, not this early in the evening. But I saw it in their eyes. The scandal. They remembered the headlines, they remembered the fallout, they remembered that I didn't graduate. But they never knew why. And I never explained. I moved through the crowd without looking up the soft rustle of my black wool coat brushing against sequins and designer nostalgia. My heels echoed faintly across the parquet floor, but the rest of me was silent, trained silence, sharpened through years of listening for what others don't say. It wasn't about vanity. I didn't come to be seen, but I wanted them to see me now. I passed the photo wall, decades of memories arranged with sticky, sweet reverence. Seniors at prom, honor rolls, debate team champions, Amelia Wynn's face in nearly every row, every club, every staged spotlight. Her smile never changed. Perfect, calculated, powerful. Mine wasn't there. My name had been scrubbed from the year-end newsletters. My senior quote never printed. The international cryptography competition I helped win credited to a student team. I'd disappeared so efficiently, it was like I had never existed. Until tonight. From the corner near the piano, someone gasped faintly. I didn't look. But I felt it. The slow gravity of attention shifting, confused, conflicted, half convinced I was just a shadow from the past returning to haunt them. I made my way to the edge of the ballroom. Table 19. Back corner. No centerpiece, no nameplate, just a folded napkin and an empty glass that had already started to sweat from melted ice. It didn't surprise me. Whoever arranged the seating had done so with precision. Amelia was at the head table, of course. Next to board members, donors, tech CEOs, old mentors. The spotlight belonged to her, always did. And yet, I felt her before I saw her. Across the room, Amelia laughed, head tilted just right, fingers brushing a glass of champagne. She was magnetic in a white silk dress that whispered old money and new power. For the others, she was the queen of the night. For me, she was a cipher. And I had finally come to crack it. But not yet. No sudden moves. Not in this room. Not in this moment. A waiter brushed by, offering sparkling water with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I nodded politely, took a glass and let the coldness numb my hand while the memories burned just beneath the surface. My body remembered before my mind did the sharp breath before a closed door slammed shut, the sterile taste of betrayal. The way silence can curdle into something harder than rage. I scanned the room again. Faces I used to know. Faces that forgot me willingly. Every cheerleader, every overachiever, every perfectly curated life standing under golden chandeliers, thinking they had mapped out the world. They didn't know I had been mapping something else. Watching. Waiting. Biding time in places they'd never imagine. War rooms. Black sites. Firewalled bunkers. Serving a country that never called me a graduate. Just a ghost with a clearance code. I touched the inside of my coat just briefly where the device lay flat against my ribs. Silent. Encrypted, ready. They thought I came here to be forgiven. They were wrong. I came to be remembered, on my terms, with their systems. And when I'm done, they'll remember exactly what they tried to bury. And who came back to dig it up? The photos were worse than I expected. Lining the north wall of the ballroom was a towering collage, 3 panels high, backlit rotating through digital slideshows titled Moments That Made Us. Seniors laughing in cafeteria booths, science fair trophies, hockey championships. That one time a snowstorm trapped the entire senior class in the gym overnight. I wasn't in any of them. Not one. Even the photos I should have been an International Coding Expo in Ottawa, the school's first AI fair, I had been cropped out or replaced with generic project team blurbs. Just smiling faces I recognized grinning around code I had written. And Amelia was everywhere. She hadn't changed much. Sharper now. Cleaner lines. Polished down to her vowels. Even in high school, she had a way of speaking like a commercial, breezy, elegant, rehearsed. But now she was industrial-grade brilliance packaged for export. A subtle chime rang through the sound system. The MC stepped forward, all charisma and cologne. Ladies and gentlemen, he beamed. Please welcome our keynote speaker, a woman who's not only led one of the most transformative fintech expansions in modern Canadian history, but also happens to be a proud alumna of Stratford Academy. The incomparable Amelia Wynne. Applause thundered like automatic gunfire. She took the stage like she'd been born on it. Every movement choreographed the glide of her heels, the pause before the mic, the gentle flick of her wrist before she spoke. The lights found her like they always did. I remember sitting in this very room. She began, voice smooth as polished glass, thinking code was just numbers. Syntax. Puzzle pieces. I didn't understand yet that it could become a language of power. I didn't blink. Because I remembered. I remembered the night she said that exact phrase to me under a flickering vending machine light during our second year at Stratford. It was my code, my phrase. She'd said it back to me with that little smirk. Back then, I thought she was impressed. I didn't realize she was collecting. Amelia's eyes scanned the crowd like a queen returning to her court. Back then, she said I was just the girl trying to make machine learning sexy enough to win grant money. But tonight, I stand before you as the CEO of Nova Cipher, a network trusted by 6 governments, 15 banks, and 1 space agency. Who knew? Laughter. Applause again. I felt my breath stall for a moment. Nova Cipher! The name echoed like a buried protocol because I had seen it before. 7 years ago. Black site. London. Encrypted transmissions bouncing through a server cluster in Geneva, masked by humanitarian aid funds. They called it Nova then before it had a logo, before it became respectable. It was flagged by NATO as a shell conduit for private asset laundering. The pattern was erratic synthetic metadata overlays, auto-self-erasing logic blocks. I never caught who was behind it. The trail had gone cold when the servers self-scrubbed. Until now, I closed my eyes for a beat. Let it settle. The syntax, the phrase, the architecture, it was her. It had always been her. Amelia leaned forward into the mic, smile flashing. But I didn't build Nova Cipher alone. Stratford was where I found the building blocks, the community, the mentorship, even the first rough sketch of the adaptive hashing model I use today. It started as a school project. That was mine. I didn't whisper it, didn't twitch. But the words slammed into my chest like a breach alarm. She was rewriting it all, taking the foundation I'd laid, twisting it into empire and standing on its bones while the room clapped. No one knew. They couldn't know. Because the real story had been classified, sealed behind redacted reports and off-books raids, and I had been the one they silenced first, expelled for unauthorized algorithmic testing and violation of research ethics. The school never printed a correction. They didn't need to. The stain had done its work. She made sure I vanished while she emerged untouched. I want to thank the faculty, Amelia continued, and the board for this evening's honor. It means the world. Because legacy isn't just about what we build, it's about who remembers us for building it. She glanced down at her notes, but just for show. Her voice didn't waver. And to anyone here tonight who once doubted their path, just know this: what you lost might have made room for what you were meant to create. The line was meant to inspire, to redeem, to rewrite. And it worked. The crowd burst into a standing ovation. Champagne glasses raised. Cameras flashed. Someone wiped a tear. I sat still, very still. My fingers gripped the edge of the tablecloth as her voice echoed inside my head, each syllable a match tossed on dry tinder. The pieces aligned now. The timeline, the scrubbed records, the research data that vanished from our lab drive 2 weeks before my hearing. The anonymous complaint the board had acted on swiftly. She didn't just take credit. She erased the threat. I was never just collateral damage. I was the target. And tonight she'd stepped on stage with my blueprint wrapped in a brand and polished into prophecy. But I wasn't here for revenge. I was here for correction. I pulled the slim device from the inner lining of my coat, thumbed it once. No lights, no pings, but it was awake. Buried code doesn't stay buried forever, especially not the kind that's been quietly watching you all along. The ballroom lights dimmed just enough to blur expressions. Champagne sparkled under chandeliers, and laughter now came in smoother waves, no longer the bright chaos of arrival, but the confident rhythm of people certain they belonged. I waited for the noise to reach its peak before moving. They always got louder after applause, and distraction was the closest thing to silence in a room like this. Table 19 had a direct line of sight to the AV staging curtain behind the east wall, probably unintentional, probably overlooked. No one expects a war zone in a wine bar. I slipped my clutch under the table, unlatched the bottom seam of my coat, and reached beneath the inner lining. My fingers brushed against the device. Matte black, no ports. Military grade. About the size of a glasses case. Completely silent unless you knew what to listen for. I pressed 2 fingers to the top panel. It warmed body heat authorization, then a single, almost imperceptible buzz against my palm. It was awake. I held it under the table as I sat back, letting my posture slump just slightly like I was scrolling through texts. A few glances passed over me and didn't stop. Exactly what I needed. Across the room, Amelia was laughing again, surrounded by the Stratford board, 2 ministers of parliament, and someone I vaguely recognized from the Bank of Canada. They clinked glasses like generals celebrating a war that never touched them. Meanwhile, I turned my wrist and opened a closed loop link to the venue's internal network. I'd pre-scanned the systems earlier in the week, disguised as a freelance tech contractor doing event recon. A few quick glances of false badge and 15 minutes of polite nodding had been enough to map the digital terrain. Now I was tunneling back in quiet, precise, and one line of misdirection away from being flagged. The device pulsed once. Access granted. I moved fast. Layered encryption backend signal relays, cached mirror drives. Nothing surprising. Most high-profile venues had elevated cybersecurity these days, but they rarely hardened against their own AV systems. Too inconvenient. I rerouted a packet of traffic through the lighting board. Nobody notices. Lag in a chandelier flicker, and traced the path back to the projection control hub. Then I saw it. Buried in a sandboxed folder labeled Legacy Assets 2023 was an anomaly, a thumbnail. Generic on the surface, just another logo slideshow for alumni contributions. But the metadata said otherwise. Time-stamped edits, code injections, an AI-generated neural tag that shouldn't belong on a static file. I tapped it open, and there it was. A fingerprint I hadn't seen in 7 years. D7017AXN, the same signature from Geneva, the same synthetic marker that wiped out the NATO trace. I felt it land in my chest like the click of a round chambered, cold, final. She didn't just borrow old code, she'd embedded her empire in it. That adaptive learning model, my model wasn't just monetized, it had become infrastructure, a backbone for laundering cloaked in financial efficiency. And now it lived under the skin of every system connected to Nova Cipher. Tax havens, foreign crypto exchanges, shell donors across 3 continents. The fingerprints were everywhere. The money didn't just move. It disappeared, rerouted through nodes designed to mimic statistical noise, like a ghost. Like me. My pulse was steady, but my knuckles had gone pale. I flexed them once, twice. Breathe. I reached into my coat again, pulled out the second piece, an induction relay unit built to bypass local firewalls using frequency overlays. Normally illegal to carry in a civilian zone, but tonight I wasn't operating under civilian rules. I paired the relay to the device and set it to silent extract. 30 seconds. That's all I needed. 30 seconds to siphon out a hashed copy of the embedded runtime logs without triggering the internal scan because Amelia was smart enough to clean metadata, but not smart enough to rewrite the hash layer I wrote myself. The relay blinked once, then twice. Extraction started. 29. Across the room, someone clinked a glass. A joke landed flat. Polite laughter. 21. A screen behind the bar flickered. Static quick like a skipped frame. A small price for hijacking the subnet without admin. 17. My fingers hovered just above the keypad, tracking the data flow in compressed bursts, the code unraveling in bursts of familiar logic. I could see where she'd modified it minor tweaks to make it more proprietary, but the spine of it was unmistakably mine. 12. A hiccup. My feed stalled. I didn't move, didn't blink, just leaned forward slightly as if adjusting my seat. Come on, come on! The signal righted itself. Pulled from the AV node and stabilized through an old maintenance port no one had sealed. I watched the final cluster extract 16 megabytes of raw runtime logs. Enough to prove the fraud, enough to trace the laundering pattern, enough to get her indicted. 5. 3. Download complete. I slid the device back into the inner pocket and reset the coat seam in a single practiced motion. Just another guest leaning back after dinner. Nothing to see. Nothing unusual. Except I caught Amelia's eye. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her gaze swept across the room like a scanner, too quick, too sharp. Noticing movement she didn't expect, she tilted her head, murmured something to the woman next to her. Something short and clipped. Then turned her back toward me. But it was too late. She knew. Somewhere in that finely calibrated mind of hers, she felt the shift, the tightening of something she couldn't name. And I knew that because I built systems like that. Systems that only triggered when pressure changed around them, when heat registered where it shouldn't. The air felt heavier now. The lights too warm. A waiter passed by and didn't offer me anything this time. Good! I pulled my napkin onto my lap and kept still. The relay device clicked softly once as it shut down. I ran a silent checksum through the backup kernel. No corruption, no trace, just evidence time-stamped, geotagged, hash-matched to her own damn Keynote folder. All I had to do now was deliver it to the right channel. Let someone else connect the final dots. Let her fall under the weight of the very system she stole. But this wasn't just about justice. This was about truth. Because for every dollar she washed, there were people buried in the shadows. People like me. Silenced. Vanished. Labeled unstable, unethical, unfit. So her rise could look clean. She built her empire on the bones of the discredited. And now the system she designed to erase me would be the one to expose her. I rose slowly, calmly. Table 19 stayed empty behind me, and Amelia Wynn's glass shook just slightly in her perfectly manicured hand. I stepped outside this ballroom through the side terrace door. The cold hit me like it always had, clean, biting, purposeful. Toronto nights in November didn't tolerate hesitation. Neither did I. The encrypted relay was still humming inside my coat, its data secure. But a file alone wouldn't be enough. Not with someone like Amelia Wynn. She was no longer just a coder who stole credit. She had become a mechanism, a clean face for a system built to bury origin stories like mine beneath patents, NDAs, and institutional complicity. And now I had proof she was laundering not just money, but sovereignty. A diplomatic relay node would have taken too long. I needed a direct line. Someone who still knew the weight of what I carried, who remembered Ghost Index and what we lost when it went black. I dialed. The encrypted satellite link lit green. A pause, then Iris. Calder, always that clip tone. Always the calm before consequence. Dev, I said, how fast can you verify a code signature? He didn't ask what I was calling about. He didn't ask why I vanished 4 years ago without a trace. Just, is this about the Geneva ghost? Worse, I found its mother. The line crackled. I heard keys, systems booting in the background. He wasn't alone. I'm at a regional skiff, he said. You have a hash? I transmitted the log file from the ballroom extract. The moment it hit, I heard his breath catch. Jesus! This isn't just laundering. This is an AI-masked chain override. Intergovernmental asset tunnels. She's running Nova Cipher, I said flatly. It's built on my adaptive learning frame. He didn't respond for 3 seconds. That told me everything. This touches Ottawa, he finally said. There's defense pension data here. Veterans funds. NATO escrow. I leaned against the terrace railing. If she pushes another update through this spine, she won't just wipe transactions. She'll control access to sovereign reserves. And no one would trace it. It's too quiet. Exactly. Silence again. Why now, Dev asked. Why not forward it to chain command and walk away? I looked through the glass doors behind me. Inside, they were passing out champagne flutes etched with Amelia's initials. Toasts, smiles, another photo shoot forming by the staircase. She's receiving a Global Ethics Award, I said, on a live broadcast. In 3 hours. Another pause, this one longer. You want to trigger a response. I want to force one. He exhaled. You're playing this loud. I don't get to play quiet anymore. Dev said nothing for a long moment. When he spoke again, it was lower, measured. If you go public, there's no extraction this time. You know that. I know. And no commendation. I'm not asking for one. He tapped a few keys. Then I'll open the back channel. We'll prep a secure drop for the file label at Foreign Interference Protocol. That'll light up the intel grid. Good, I said. Make sure it lands where it hurts. There was something he wanted to say. Some part of him that still thought I could walk away clean. That maybe I had time left to rebuild a life outside the shadows. But he knew me better than that. You'll burn bridges for this, he said. I glanced back toward the ballroom, toward Amelia's haloed silhouette behind the curtain of applause. I didn't come here to cross bridges, I said. I came to collapse them. A pause. Then almost gently leans open if you need it. I ended the call. Inside, the crowd was being ushered into the main auditorium. The award ceremony would begin soon. The lights would dim, the cameras would roll, and Amelia would take center stage in her custom-tailored armor, talking about accountability while rerouting assets under 11 different sovereign flags. But she didn't know what was about to happen. She didn't know that her final version of the truth had just met its checksum. I pulled the relay one last time, uploaded the runtime chain to the drop, and locked the encryption. No way to scrub it now. Once activated, it would broadcast to every endpoint in the secured threat monitoring net, including Parliament. The question wasn't if they'd act, it was if they'd act fast enough. I re-entered the building as the ushers dimmed the hallway lights. My coat swayed behind me like a shadow coming into focus. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel heroic. But I felt ready, because sometimes justice isn't earned in whispers behind closed doors. Sometimes it's dragged into the light raw, undeniable, and loud enough to shake the glass from its frame. Tonight I wasn't just a ghost from the past. I was the system's echo, and I'd come back to break the signal. The auditorium lights dimmed like curtains closing over a lie. Rows of alumni and dignitaries settled into velvet-backed chairs, murmurs softening into reverent silence. Someone in front of me adjusted their program with too much care, like preparing for a sermon instead of a scandal. On stage, a spotlight ignited, and there she was, Amelia Wynne, draped in winter white, all silk and spine. Her heels clicked softly across the polished floor as she approached the podium, head high, smile calibrated. Cameras tracked her like orbiting satellites. Behind her, a massive LED screen shimmered to life, looping through gold-framed images of her journey, young coder, startup founder, fintech pioneer. They'd even added a string quartet in the corner. Everything about this was curated, controlled. The moderator's voice came over the speakers. Please welcome this year's recipient of the World Financial Icon Award, Amelia Wynne, founder and CEO of Nova Cipher. Thunderous applause erupted. I stayed seated. Her voice came in soft, then sharpened. Thank you. Truly. Tonight is not about wealth. It's about trust. About what it means to build systems that people can rely on, that nations can rely on. I felt my fingers curl into the armrest. Not yet. She continued, We live in an era of uncertainty, misinformation, volatility. But financial stability, digital integrity is what allows progress to endure. The screen behind her began to transition. Clean graphs, global partnership logos, an animated Nova Cipher node map spreading like a network of light across continents. She was almost finished. Almost. And with the global rollout of Nova Cipher's security layer, Amelia said, We've created not just a platform, but a promise. She looked out across the room. Her voice softened, almost personal. To those who gave me room to lead, to build, to imagine a better world, this is for you. The crowd rose to its feet. Applause erupted again. My thumb hovered over the relay control in my pocket. 3, 2, 1. I pressed it. The LED screen behind her flickered, then froze. The quartet stopped playing mid-note. A high-pitched hum pierced the silence, barely audible unless you knew what to hear for. Then the images shattered. Lines of code spilled across the display like blood across snow. Not random. Intentional. The screen glitched again, then recalibrated, now pulsing with the architecture of a live financial system. The Nova Cipher interface stripped to its framework. No branding, no polish, just cold logic trees and back-end pathways. A single prompt blinked in red at the bottom, unauthorized transfer attempt active. The room stilled. The kind of stillness that means something sacred is breaking. Security, Amelia said, turning just slightly. Her voice faltered. First time I'd heard it crack in 20 years. On-screen transaction markers lit up. Not fake, not static, live. From Singapore to Oslo, Toronto to Zurich, automated processes halting. Wallets freezing, delay protocols triggering. For every person in that room with money in Nova Cipher, a whisper of digital collapse had just reached their devices. Phones buzzed in pockets. Bank apps flickered warnings. Someone gasped audibly. Then someone screamed. A chair clattered to the floor. Across the aisle, a man in a navy suit jabbed at his phone screen again, until it locked him out. Amelia stepped away from the podium, eyes scanning for anyone to explain what was happening. She looked like she wanted to say this isn't real, but even she knew better. I stood slowly, from the back row. No spotlight, no stage, just a black coat and a locked gaze. She saw me and stopped breathing, because she knew. I moved toward the aisle as security scrambled to their earpieces. One of them tried to block the screen, but it was too late. Broadcast uplink had already synced. The breach sequence was now mirrored across every live feed connected to the event, not just in the auditorium, global. My voice was calm even. What you're seeing isn't theft. It's a mirror, a simulation of what's been running under your systems for the last 6 years. Someone turned to me. A senator, maybe. Confused? Pale? Who are you? I ignored him. This is Amelia Wynn's code, I said. Built on stolen architecture, deployed under false compliance, and optimized for one thing: untraceable asset laundering. The moderator reached for his mic. It didn't turn on. The sound system was mine now. This breach isn't external. It's inherent. The logic has always been there. The pathways always live. Tonight, you're seeing what it looks like when truth no longer waits for permission. I reached the front of the aisle. Amelia stared at me, mouth-parted face, unreadable. Then finally she spoke. This is an attack, she said. She's a disgraced contractor. She has no jurisdiction. She has a name, someone said. A woman in the 3rd row. I didn't look to see who. I raised the relay once more. A final command. The screen flashed white, then black. Then one line of code in pale gray, steady and still. Sovereignty compromised. Chain of trust breached. Silence followed. Real silence? The kind where truth hangs in the air, trembling, undeniable. I turned without waiting for applause. And walked out. I hadn't made it 10 steps into the corridor when I heard it. The silence cracked. Not with applause, not with shouts. With footsteps. Heavy, coordinated, government-issued. Then the distinct voice, amplified and unmistakable. Amelia Wynn, stand where you are. Financial Intelligence Service. You are under arrest for violations under the International Asset Integrity Act and Article 14 of Canada's Sovereign Compliance Code. Gasps rose behind me like smoke. Chairs scraped, phones lifted. I turned slow and measured. 2 agents in dark suits advanced down the aisle, flanking Amelia on both sides. One held a tablet warrant authorization glowing against the stage lights. The other reached gently for her arm. She backed away. This is a misunderstanding, she said, her voice too smooth, too rehearsed. I want counsel. I demand counsel. This is defamation. This woman isn't credible. She's been discredited by multiple institutions. No, said one of the agents quietly. She's been classified. That shut her up. The room shifted. Something fundamental had changed in the air, like gravity had finally chosen a side. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't need to. Some sat frozen, some stood stunned, but no one moved to stop it. The screen behind her was still blank, but the silence said everything. A man near the 2nd row rose, well-dressed, composed, unmistakably government. His voice cut through the room like a gavel. I will be introducing a motion for a joint parliamentary inquiry into Nova Cipher's operations and regulatory oversight violations, he said, calm as a guillotine. Effective immediately. Someone else started recording. Amelia's hands trembled just enough to notice. She tried to pull her sleeve down to adjust the way her dress caught the light, but none of it mattered now. Her brand was broken. Her system had turned on her. She looked up one last time, searching for someone to speak in her defense. A board member, a partner, anyone. No one stood. And when her eyes finally found me standing in the shadows near the side exit, she didn't speak. Because she understood. This was what truth looked like when it didn't ask for permission. I watched as they led her down the stairs, one agent gently shielding her face from the cameras that now surged forward, late to the truth, but hungry for it all the same. Behind her, the podium sat empty. The quartet was gone. The flowers wilted under stage heat. For a second, she turned her head just slightly as if to say something. But I was already walking away. No need to hear it. Justice didn't need an apology. It just needed to land. I slipped out through the freight exit, no lights, no fanfare. The loading dock was quiet damp from the November mist. I walked past crates marked for gala equipment, returns past 2 staffers smoking nervously and pretending not to recognize me. The media flood hadn't arrived yet, but it would. They'd come hungry, flashing lenses and fevered questions. They'd ask where I'd been, why I'd come back, what it felt like to end an empire in one line of code. I left them nothing. Just a looped transmission triggered 10 minutes after I vanished from camera range. It played once across every projector that had once carried Amelia's face. A silent screen, a soft flicker, then pale gray text, steady and still like a whisper folded into steel. Some truths are encrypted for justice, not glory. No name, no title, just the line. Just the code that undid her, glowing, like the final breath of a system learning how to die. I didn't go home. I didn't check the headlines. A week later, somewhere in London, a sealed envelope arrived at the disciplinary board of Stratford Academy. Inside, no return address, no cover letter. Just a single page, A formal petition requesting the full restoration of Iris Calder's academic record and honorary degree, accompanied by a time-stamped data trace proving authorship of the foundational model known today as Nova Cipher Core. The sender listed only as anonymous. No applause followed, but somewhere something was corrected, and that was enough, for now. What do you think about the above stories? If you were me, what would you do? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.